we get to talk about dahlias. So dahlias are super fun because there's a ton of variety to them. You've got your single petal dahlia like these that have a ton of pollen in there, and every pollinator in your neighborhood is going to love them. I mean, we walk out and there's so many bumblebees on those things. It's crazy. Bumblebees, butterflies, other bees. I mean, there's literally something flying around right now. Mad that I'm sitting by it. There's single dahlias. There's pom-pom dahlias, which look like a big old poof ball. There's cactus dahlias that look all pokey and cool. There's dinner plate dahlias that are enormous, and every kid likes to go and cut down and make a beautiful bouquet of. And there's probably others that I'm not mentioning, but there's a lot. And so when you find a dahlia that you love, you propagate it. You make more of it. And so that's what we've done. We want to share with you some of the tips and tricks that we've learned. So there's 3 different ways you can propagate a dahlia. One is by separating the tubers. You get a big old clump of potatoes, it looks like, and you divide each one of those out, make sure each one has a strong neck and an eye, and that's a plant. And you can make multiple plants out of one clump. A second way to do it is by seed. If you do it by seed, just realize it's not going to be the same dahlia it came from. It's like an apple. If you eat a Honeycrisp apple and you say, wow, I really like this apple, I'm going to plant this apple seed and I'm going to get a Honeycrisp apple tree, it's not going to happen. Because the genetics within that seed are different than the tree it came from. It'll be its own, never been done before. And if it tastes great, slap your name on it and let everybody know you made a new amazing apple. Although you're going to wait like 5 to 6 years to know, but either way, you'll have made something new. Same thing with dahlia seeds, but you only need to wait a year to see if it's really great. And then the flower will open, it'll be its own thing. But either way, you made more from one. The third way to propagate is by cutting. That's what we're going to talk about today. We've actually done a video in the past. If you want detailed instructions on how to do this, go back to that video. Well, I think we did like 150, between 150 and 200, and I think we lost 2, maybe 3 dahlias. They all took extremely well. So go back to that. No, it did great. All of these dahlias here are from that, and there's tons more all over from that. But just as a refresher, basically we took a tuber, we potted it up, we started growing, we cut the growth right close to the tuber. You can actually see a few of the cuttings right here that we cut off, the cut ends. We cut it right next to the tuber, took any of the small leaves off on the bottom, dipped it in rooting hormone, put it in a heat, well, it probably looked a little bit like this actually. A little bit like this. These are the kind of cuttings that you'd end up with. Dip that in rooting hormone, we put it in a 72 count tray with sterile potting soil. Made sure it was moist, put a humidity dome on it, set it to 71 degrees, and it's like, set it and forget it. Set it, man, that's a phrase. Leave me a comment if you remember who said that. Set it and forget it. It was a big thing back in the day. But either way, you set it and you forget about it, literally, ish. Check on it like every once in a while, like every week, just to see if it's dry, and just moisten it. But other than that, let it do its thing. And by week 2 or 3, you're gonna have roots. So by week 3 or 4, you go ahead and pot it up. And that's what we did. So we took those and we potted them up into their own little bit of a larger container. And now this is where it will live until it goes in the ground. So now we're on our next step. How do we make sure this is healthy? Well, we can see this is actually a good example of one that we're definitely gonna do something about. This is Cafe au Latte, which is the #1 for wedding bouquets. It's usually mostly white, sometimes has a little bit of pink or purple kind of stripe through the middle, but it is gorgeous, big dinner plate style dahlia. But you'll see one issue that we're having, and it's not an issue, it's natural, it's what the flower does, is it's putting a ton of energy into going straight up. That's only fine if I want all the energy to continue to go straight up and I'm competing in some type of dahlia society and I want one big perfect flower head on the top that I can bring to the competition. You gotta baby that thing, you gotta make sure it doesn't break when the wind starts picking up. That's not what most home gardeners want. For them, they want lots of flowers and they want it to be sturdier and stronger in a storm. So for them, and for me, we're gonna cut it back. Because when you cut it back, like this is actually a good example of one that I walked by a little while ago and saw it was too tall and just snipped off the top. You can see where the top was snipped, right here. And then suddenly these branches grow up, these branches grow up. Down here, these ones are gonna come out eventually too. So now instead of having one strong central leader, you've got 6 or 8. So let's take this one. actually. That's a different one than we were just holding. Maybe we'll do more than one. This one, and we'll use it as an example. So we've got one set of leaves, two sets of leaves. My personal rule is you can cut anywhere from, I mean, you can really cut anywhere, but what I prefer is no less than 2 sets and no more than 4. This one's pretty tall here to where, I mean, generally speaking, I like it to be about this tall. What is that, like 4 inches, 3-4 inches, where I cut it. Some branching is more compact, so you might leave all 4 sets. Others is more stretched out, and you might only keep 2 sets of leaves, like this one. So this one here, I'm gonna go, actually it's 3 sets technically, because there's this one on the bottom. That's 1, 2, 3 sets. I'm gonna come right here, and I'm gonna clip it off. Now that looks drastic, and it was, but I'm doing it at the right time, because right now, nobody cares. There's no flowers on it. It's not featured out in the yard. This is the time. Now it'll start it'll try to put energy up here, but there's nowhere for it to go, so it's gonna start really flooding into all the branches, and it's gonna become a nice, bushy, more flower-filled dahlia. Let's do another one here. This one, and just as an FYI for you, some dahlias, like these single petal ones, this one we actually didn't even pinch. This is the max height. You don't necessarily need to pinch them back, but when I'm doing them for sale, I usually will, because it will still elicit more flowers. But these ones are pretty strong on their own. They probably won't flop over. This is an example of one that's a single face, and you can actually see it's got some flower buds in the top, which is great. That's cute. So we probably don't necessarily need to cut this one back, but as an illustration, because if it was a big dinner plate dahlia, I'd cut it way back here. Because it's not, it's a single petal and they naturally are shorter, I'm gonna give it this set of leaves up here. And this way, whenever somebody comes and buys this, or if I plant it out, we're gonna start off with a lot more flowers. So there's still a good reason to do it, but it's a little less necessary than it is with some of your larger dahlias. Now, if I wanted to, I could take that cutting that just dropped in the ground and I could root this. If you're a home gardener, you could do that. Actually, this one's a better example for you. So let's say this was a cutting that you took. If you wanted to root this, how would you do it? You would cut right at the leaf axis, because right where the leaves are, where the nodes are underneath there, this is where it's still trying to figure out what the cell wants to be, whether that's a flower, whether that's fruit, whether that's a stem, whether that's roots. You want to use that to your advantage. This has quite a bit of leaves on the top, so I would probably cut some of them back just for less transpiration or the water evaporating out. Now that is a beautiful cutting, spot on. I dip that in rooting hormone, put that in my tray, set it at 71 degrees, and this will be a whole nother dahlia in 2 to 3 weeks. 95% guarantee if you do all of that. So glad y'all joined me. Thank you for coming into the garden with us, doing a little bit of dahlia. From there, once you pass your danger of frost, go ahead and plant it out. You can put some fertilizer on it if you'd like to. Make sure it's a nice, well-drained soil. Still give it some type of protection, some type of structure, especially the ones with big flowers on it. You're not going to have to do as much as if you didn't trim it back. But some people will put a little tomato cage around it to protect it. Others will clip it to a fence line or something. Some will put a whole line of dahlias and then do posts on either side and strings between so they all hold up. Whatever you do, do you. Happy gardening. Good luck. Thanks for joining us. And enjoy your 2024 growing season. Bye.